Mayflower Compact is basically the governing document of the Pilgrims. They create a covenant. Remember, these folks like agreements that outline the responsibilities between groups. So for them, the Mayflower Compact is a covenant between those who are on board the Mayflower, remember, some of them are pilgrims, some of them aren't, and whoever they choose to be their leaders. This says what each side will contribute and what their responsibilities are to each other in society. This is extremely important, and the reason they found it is that they're in a life or death situation, sitting in what they consider to be a wicked wilderness. They need expectations about what everyone is supposed to be doing. Clear expectations are essential for their success. When Jamestown was founded, these expectations didn't exist, and a whole bunch of people died. The Pilgrims realized that death is a very real part of their lives, and want to do what they can to isolate themselves. Remember, death represents chaos, and they're a society founded, structured, and driven by the concept of order. Now, they're also not where they're supposed to be. I may have mentioned that earlier. And when you're not where you're supposed to be, typically the agreements you've made previous don't apply. So they need to make a new agreement to make sure that those people who work for, well, the Walmart company on board, that they don't just run off and do their own thing. They want them to follow the religious beliefs that the Puritans have set out to create in the New World. Finally, they don't want the non-Puritans or the indentured servants just to run off or ignore the rules. Yes, they've taken on this group. Yes, they're trying to be commercially successful. Yes, they're looking for religious tolerance of their religion. So they want Puritanism to be tolerated, but don't really want to tolerate anyone else's religion. They would never have stood for Catholicism in the colonies. They want to make sure these people act in the appropriate ways, so they need rules to be laid out. This really sets the stage, though. An agreement or a covenant between the members of society and the leaders means that you have clear understandings about what each expects. This is a classic piece of American political thought that happens at one of the early American origins, or certainly one of the early European interactions in America. Now, all of this works okay for the Pilgrims. I mean, if you want to look at population numbers of Plymouth Colony, in 1620, there are 103 people there in the colony who agree to the civil body politic. By September of the next year, they're down to 33. Then they get a boatload of new people coming in from England in November of 1621, and they're up to 88. By 1623, there are 180 people in Plymouth Colony. By 1630, 290. By 1690, again, that's a big jump forward, we have over 3,000 people in Plymouth Colony. So the strains of the initial group, when you keep the group small, you can do some of the things that get outlined in the Mayflower Compact. But eventually, as the population grew, it became more difficult to have everyone vote on every single thing that they talked about. So the government changes a little bit. But the seeds are there, and the importance is that this group is self-governing. They made their agreement in the New World to govern themselves. They were not governed by a company back in England, no matter how much the investors wanted them to be. Our second example comes from Virginia, in what developed out of Jamestown, but not specifically Jamestown itself, but the Virginia House of Burgesses.